Hey moms, it's Laura Ollinger. Welcome to the Positively Healthy Mom podcast. Because there's no manual for the hardest job in the world. Hello, I'm Laura Ollinger and welcome to the Positively Healthy Mom. Today, I'm so excited to introduce you all to Brenda Melendez, a friend of mine that we've known each other for a couple years now. We first met through the Neuroencoding Institute, where we both have become elite certified neuroencoding specialists. So welcome, Brenda. Say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be in the show again, because I used to be with Paula. Now I get to be with you. I'm so happy that we can share this moment together.
Awesome. Making the rounds. So welcome back to Zingo. And let's just dig right in. And so I want to start asking some real personal questions because I know that you are an incredibly kind of open, vulnerable person. You're just really willing to share your own personal struggles in order to help people. And that has what has made you such an amazing coach because you're able to connect with people on such a deep level. And I think that's just one thing that I've always observed about you, that it's just very raw. This is Brenda. There is no, fakeness going on. This is the real Brenda. And so how did you come into the realization that you needed to make a change in your family? Because that was kind of like your professional life and your personal life were very much going in parallel together. So can you explain a little bit about what happened?
Well, yeah, it's a good question, I will say, because it takes me back in October 2020, when my daughter was in the hospital because she tried to commit suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember at that time, I felt like everything just went, upside down. I was like, what's going on in here? I started to look into myself like, am I doing something wrong? I guess because that's the first questions, a lot of us ask, especially as a mom, we feel a lot of responsibility, right? That we carry a lot with our kids. And I started just asking questions. I started blaming my husband. Like maybe it's you, maybe it's it me. Nothing is working on me. So when she was in the hospital, I just remember because she will call me from there because it was during COVID that we couldn't go in and visit her. So it was even tougher because we had to let our baby girl stay at the hospital while we came home and take care of the rest of the kids. And I remember I was like, this is really hard. I was like, I do not wish nobody, any mom, any parents to go through this. And I just said, you know what, God, if you have something for me, show me the way. Because clearly I don't get it. Because when I was 17, I tried to commit suicide as well. So then I saw the pattern, my daughter, me, and then me having two little ones. I said, what's next? Who's going to be the next one? So I started freaking out. And I said, definitely, I'm not doing something. Definitely something is wrong, but who is it? So I was trying to look for, who to blame on. So the deeper I went into that conversation, like, what do I have to do? So I just, started praying, got on my knee and you know what? I said, if it's me, show me the way. Tell me what to do because I'm sick and tired and I don't want to live like this the rest of my life. I said, all I want to do is just die because literally, I just want to run away. But I was like, how can I do that? I have two little ones. So then I got into the personal development. I met I got the possibility to go into, Tony Robbins' world. And then I met Bino and then Joseph. I was like, wow, this is a different world.
Yeah.
There's hope, right? So it wasn't just like, oh, I had to just wait with all this baggage that I have. I just had to carry on by myself. I felt like I found a community of people that understand me, that understand my situation, where I don't feel judged, where just feel appreciated and help me carry that through. Because if you see it like you're a mom, I'm a mom, right? And when we understand each other, we help each other.
Yes.
Because
Yep.
all the words back then I used to hear was like, be patient, pray, fasting, do this, do that. But I felt like none of that was working. And now I realize why. It's not that God doesn't listen to you, it's that we have to do our part too.
Mhm.
There's work that needs to be done. And I figure
Mhm.
it out because now I can tell you a different story. My daughter, definitely, she's out of suicidal thoughts. She's definitely, doing so much better, which I feel proud of her because I tell her, like, I'm just the guide. I'm not the hero in the story. The hero are you with your
Mhm.
own effort. I'm just here. And I realize it's like a lot of times we want our kids to change. We find, resources for our kids so they can get help. When we mom, we are left behind. We don't pay
Mhm.
attention to ourselves. We just think that they are going to do the work and they'll be fine. But to tell you the truth, to be honest, what had worked for me as a coach for moms, for stressed parents, is the parents are the one that needs to do the job if they want to see the result in their children.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's the magic. Even me saying I get whoops, whoops, what is it? Bumps in my body because it's I done it in the past. I hire someone to help her. It was good because it led me to realize that, you know what? Why just leave her alone and do the work? Why not me join? Because when we get together, we multiply. We
Mhm.
get all the results that when just one person doing it alone, it is harder. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love the transformation that you went through because what you first described was you were looking for someone to blame. And you kind of then, you know, empowered yourself and turned inward. And I think this is what I heard, but correct me if I'm wrong. It sounded like you became to a point where you said, I'm not going to blame myself, but I am going to kind of step up and take responsibility because I am her mother, that something has to change, and I'm going to be like kind of a leader and make some changes in myself and hope that those changes then affect her in a positive way. Did I kind of get that right?
Yes, yes. Because when you said the leader, right?
Hmm.
I thought the leader is your husband,
Yeah.
or the leader is someone else's, like, the politics, the religion, anybody else, right? But then I was like, okay, they don't live with me, especially in my head, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, something has to connect because I felt lost in my head. Like
Hmm.
that's where all started. So I started finding out what was a true leader. And
Hmm.
if I was willing to step in that, in those shoes, if I
Hmm.
was gonna be able to do that job or the role, right? So I did I made the decision because I wanted my husband to ride along with me. I wanted my kids to ride along with me because, as you know, when we're learning so much, you think about it, this is so good,
Yeah.
right? You want all the family to join you. You want your friends. You want everybody that is suffering. You said, like, hey, I found something good that can
Mhm.
help. But
Yeah.
guess what? Right? Sometimes people don't listen, maybe because it's not their time yet,
Hmm.
maybe because they feel that they can handle it by themselves,
Hmm.
maybe, any reasons, because we are made up of a lot of excuses why we don't take action. So
Hmm.
then to me was like, am I going to wait for my husband to take action? Am I going to wait for my daughter? Or am I going to do something about it without them? So I decided to, you know what? I'm going to prove to myself because just do the work. Because I used to hear in my head, it's like, just you do it, Brenda, you do it. Because I felt like something was leading me. Just do it. It doesn't matter, what other people say, what other people do, just do it. So then I started working on myself and I was like, oh,
Hmm.
okay, how does it feel to work on myself? Well, it was more about being aware of my thoughts, aware of my feelings, aware of my actions, right? Because it wasn't just about saying it. It's like, what were those words creating in me? Was it creating fear? Was it creating joy? Scarcity? What was it? So I
Hmm.
used to feel scared all the time, scared
Hmm.
about losing my child, scared by, getting in trouble, scared of money, so many things.
Hmm.
Had to overcome that. And I was like, well, I'm the one in my head. So I'm the one that has the answer. Eventually, I'll be able to figure out, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So, and that's when I stopped, blaming my husband, blaming other people, because it's like we all have responsibility. As much as I understand, other moms, that we carry a lot as far as I think raising the kids, because a lot of times we are the ones that spend more time with them, right? So
Mhm.
that, to me, the way I felt it is like I feel even more responsibility because
Yeah.
I'm with them, most of the time. So I'm
Mhm.
their model of their world.
Yeah.
Who are they watching? They're watching mom. So if mom is angry all the time, that's what they're catching on, right?
Mhm.
If mom is
Mhm.
sad, because I used to see my little one when my daughter was in the hospital, she would tell my husband, Daddy, Daddy, mom is crying again.
Mm.
Mommy's
Mm.
on the stairs, mommy's this, because I couldn't hide the pain.
Yeah.
So then I was like, well, it's me that has to do something about it. And I did
Mhm.
it at the beginning, I did it for the love of my children. Because any mom, I think we put our kids first. And I did it
Totally.
for them. And
Yeah.
at some point, I realized, what? It's not just about them, it's about me because I matter as a mom. I am value as a mom.
Mhm.
Right? So I started like giving me some love instead of waiting for the people to come and rescue Brenda, waiting for the people to, to love me.
Mm.
And then I believe that's when the whole transformation came
Mm.
because I
You're
started seeing myself differently.
mhm. So you're almost like you're evoking a lot of like emotion in me right now. I almost feel like teary because that is the exact reason why I do this show. It's so important because we all want our kids to be happy and successful and thriving and healthy and all these things. And it's in order to get that, we're all about like giving and doing for our kids. But the number one best way is for moms to be in a good place mentally, physically, health, right? Like socially, spiritually, all these things, because we are kind of the ground zero, if you will, of where these things come from. So if you have an anxious teenager, the first thing I do is I look at the mom and I'm like, well, are you anxious? Right? Because 99% of the time they are. If you have a sad child, are you sad? Right? The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And so it's like, I love how you just took so much kind of accountability and responsibility. And like you said, you didn't wait for your husband, you didn't wait for your daughter. You just said, okay, it's gotta change now. And I'm gonna do that. And so I think that's what I hope the moms here today, hear literally with their ears, hear what we're saying, that if your child is struggling, instead of, I love, get help for your child, right? Because that is helpful. Like there's never a time when that's a bad thing. It only is helpful. But the other thing you can do is get some change for yourself. So as far as when you coach clients, what is that process like when somebody comes to you? What are some things that you can do or say to them? Like if there is a mom listening today and they're like, oh my gosh, this is in my family right now, this is happening, like I have a really sad child, or I really this, what are some things that you could say to them that would be helpful?
Well, first, I believe is for the mom is don't be so hard on yourself.
Mm.
Because if you think about it, I mean, nobody was born with the knowledge, right? This is our first time being moms. It's not
Mhm.
like we've been moms forever, right? So when you on your first kids, you make a lot of mistakes unconsciously. I believe it all unconsciously because like
Yeah.
when I heard someone say that there's no way a mom stop, loving their child because we have that bond, right? There's a hormone in our body that it gets created, it expands when we are pregnant and when our child is born. So whenever a mom, give away their child, it's not really their fault. It's mentally stuff. They're not, there's something else. So we cannot be so judgmental of that mom. So to me, it's like number one is, forgiveness within you. Have self compassion. Why? Because sometimes we make things out of, just sometimes we wake up, right? And then we don't know what to do. So we just turn on the TV and then that's the program, that it start running into our mind. Whatever you
Mhm.
see, you start creating. And
Mhm.
then we go pick up our child and then we don't realize that you know, is running in the back end of our mind without even us realizing what we're doing.
Mm.
So then when I go to the mom, it's like, okay, let's start working on it. Let's start just mainly, I think I like to listen to what they have to say because a lot of times I feel not many people might understand unless you're a mom. Because, like, if you were just went to school to study, I guess the psychology or the mom, but it's like if you describe pain, like, labor pain, if you're not a mom, you will not understand it
Mhm.
because it's kind of undescribable.
Mhm.
Like people
Yeah.
ask me, my kids ask me, I'm like, I don't even know how to cramps, but no, that's not even cramps because every woman experiences different pains, right?
Yes.
So then it's more like the mom is be patient. And then if you really want to make a difference in your child's life, get
Mhm.
help, right? If it's
Mhm.
something easy, then you can do it. There's so many books, you know, information out there where you can start, right? And if not, then look for help. Because when my daughter was 9, a friend of mine told me, hey, Brenda, my daughter said that your daughter wanted to, kill herself. And I thought it was a joke.
Mm.
It was a joke. I was like, okay, she's only 9. What is she talking about? Like anybody say that, right? So you don't take it seriously.
Yeah.
And the year kept passing by. And I could see, like, when she started becoming a teenager, because I believe, like, what I have experienced so far as a mom, that's where all the challenges start, right? And if you're not prepared, oh my goodness, I started losing a lot of hair. My eye will like twitch a lot, my everywhere. I feel like tense. I could not sleep. My knee will hurt. And I was like, man, I feel like I'm, 60 years old or I don't know, 80. I felt so old, but I was because I was really tired.
Mm.
So then it's like, get help or find or look, or do something about it, but not just wait and think that, oh, she'll be fine. She'll grow out of it. Yeah, she'll grow out of it. But the trauma, it will stay there with her. And the way I see it, it will be passed along. Because I do believe that we pass our traumas, our habits, our patterns to our own kids. So then, I started asking, what are the patterns that I see in my daughter? Okay. And I visualize myself like, oh my God, when my little girls, because back then I think she was like 3 or 2.5. I said, what's gonna happen when she reaches that age? I'm gonna be older. I'm gonna get a heart attack. I'm like,
Mhm.
this is horrible. So
Yeah.
that's where I guess I visualize myself into the future.
Mm.
Seeing yourself to get you there to take action instead of just waiting. Oh, she'll be okay. Like I don't want to deal with it because yeah, dealing with it, it takes courage. It
It
takes
does.
a lot of courage.
Yeah, and I think that's if I had a wish or a hope for people, it's that they do have the courage to kind of visualize both worst case scenario and best case scenario. A lot of times when I'm talking with a parent about their child, and I say, well, what will happen if you just do nothing? If nothing changes? And you can tell they have a hard time answering that question because they don't really want to think about it. Like, right? Nobody wants to think about bad thoughts. And especially if like there's maybe a decline, they don't want to think of their child getting worse. They kind of hope things just stay even keel or stabilize somehow or miraculously improve. Right. But things generally don't just miraculously improve. Like if things improve, it's because we do something differently. And, with the help of a coach, that's, how that happens. So I love what the kind of theme that you've been talking about is, you were living in this like kind of autopilot world where everything was just kind of happening. You were, going through your day without really being kind of aware of like what you were saying, your thoughts and your feelings. And then you develop this like deeper level of self-awareness. And so that when you were transforming is kind of like what brought you, kind of really more being conscious and present. And so how, do you remember back, you said you had some suicidal thoughts when you were 17. Like, do you remember what those thoughts were back then? Is it possible to like remember what kind of you felt at the time?
Yes, definitely. Because it's like the memory always stay there, right?
Mm,
It's just that the pain is not there anymore, but the
mm,
memory is like it's there. So
mhm,
what got me into, myself into that stage of suicidal was more of I'm not worth it. I don't
mm,
feel loved by my, parents, by my sisters, by none of the people that I was surrounded with.
mm,
Because a lot of like I came from my country when I was 17. So I guess that happened within about 6 months of coming over.
mhm,
And the culture, everything was so different. So not understanding the language, um, not because I had to stay in my country when I was 2 years old with my grandparent. So I met my mom when I was 12. And then I came to the US when I was 17. So to me, I had this idea, as your little child, when you're little, you live dreams, right? In your
mhm,
head.
mhm,
And then when you grow up and it's not what you dream about, you say, what happened? Right?
mhm,
Where was that? So to me, I had this illusion of this dream that when I come to the US, oh, I'm gonna be everything for my parents.
mm,
I'm gonna mean the world to them because I never been with them.
mhm,
So to me, it was like, oh my goodness, they're gonna be so happy to see me. They're gonna love me and everything. They're gonna give me all the love that I deserve, right? And then when
mhm,
I came, like my mom had to work 2 jobs,
mm,
and then she was already divorced. And then my sisters, we were all teenagers.
mm,
Imagine teenagers, especially not living, not racing together, not
mhm,
used to the fights, not used to, because in my country you live more free. Like you play with the kids outside,
mm,
everyone. Here it was
mhm.
like I felt like I was in prison.
Oh.
So it was like, and then back then, no internet, no nothing, right? So maybe it was better, right? Because now it's like, oh, it's more scary than back then. So
Mhm,
yeah. So but then yeah, and mainly was I didn't feel love, I didn't feel understood, and I felt like my life was meaningless.
mm,
So it was like, what's the point of leaving? Who cares about me? I don't think nobody cares.
mm,
And that's when I started like going more and deeper. And the more I thought about it, the more my mind took control over me. And constantly I was thinking, how do I do this? How do I do this? How do I do this? It's like if I just, because I used to walk from home to the school until one day I just got into an argument with one of my, sisters. And I said, you know what? This is the day. I don't want to live anymore. So I just took a bunch of pills.
oh, wow.
And the next day I woke up and I was in the bed and I was like, what? Where am I? I thought that I was dead in heaven or somewhere. And then I was like, is this real? And then I got even more mad at myself because I couldn't do it.
Oh,
And then I started reading more, like, when my daughter went through that, it's like the doctors tell you watch because when they try to do it once and they didn't do it, then their
mhm,
mind will try more like, do it, do it. So then that's what started happening to me until like one day my mom, I was, at the lunch at school and I came out of the lunchroom and then I saw my Spanish teacher and she saw me crying because I couldn't stop crying. I would cry every day. I
oh,
would, I wanted to sleep. I didn't want to do anything. I just, I was just there. Like I was kind of dead, but
mm,
live. But in the inside, that's how I felt.
yeah,
And I remember the teacher said, what's wrong? And I said, nobody loves me. Nobody
wow,
loves me. And I just started crying. I said, and the other day I took some pills and I couldn't kill myself. And then
oh,
she
wow,
was like, she started crying with me, right? And then later they called me into the office because, suicidal is like, something serious, right? Sometimes we think that it's not, but it is. It all
mm,
depends on the person, what they're going through. So when I saw my mom, when they called my mom from work and I saw her like, on the office, and then she was crying. I said, what happened to my mom? So I
mm,
thought about it, like, what did I do? So I started
mm,
blaming myself, right? What did I do?
yeah,
So then they sent me to a mental, I guess, doctor to get help. The pills, none of that, none of the stuff were working for me.
mm,
Sleep, the suicidal thoughts still came until like I remember, my mom told me, "Hey, your grandparents said that if you want to go back home, you can. You don't have to stay here."
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then that to me at that moment, I think it was like kind of awakening for me to stop those thoughts because they were not getting me anywhere. And I was only hurting the people that I love, that I
Mm,
care the most. That was my grandparents because
mm,
they were my parents. And then
mhm,
when they told me that, I guess I felt that little light of love. So
mm,
for someone, I do matter.
mhm.
Maybe for the people that I'm here, I don't matter. But back home, they love me.
Yeah.
So then I was like, what if I just do it for them?
Mhm.
Right? I want to do it for them because I don't want to see my grandparents hurt. I already seen enough when I was little child. So um, figuring it out what's going on in the house can make a lot of difference because little kids watch us as parents
Mhm.
go through, even if we don't say it,
Mhm.
even if we don't say nothing, but we can sense something is wrong with my parents.
Mhm.
Sometimes when you're little, you feel guilty. Maybe it's
Yeah.
my fault because my mom is not doing well. Maybe it's my fault because my dad, said this, or my uncle, you feel all the blame, even if
Mhm.
they don't tell you, but because there's no communication, so you feel like it's all your fault. So that's
Yeah.
how I felt when I was little, and I believe, and now that I've been through this process of healing,
Mhm.
this is basically what I've done to my children. And I can see even now what patterns they are repeating from me. And I'm
Oh.
still working on it, hey, let's do this, let's do that. And I
Mhm.
create a connection in my children that they do listen to me, not just, oh, here's my mom giving me a sermon again. No, they truly listen because I
Mm.
created that bond where they feel love, heard, so they feel like they do matter. Because I believe that that's the number one, for any
Yeah.
human, right?
Yeah, that they
Love.
matter and that they're loved. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to pause my conversation with Brenda Perez. If you'd like to hear more, listen to the next episode. Thank you for listening to the Positively Healthy Mom podcast. Because there's no manual for the hardest job in the world. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends.